Welcome back, subscribers. Welcome to Silver Bull channel. Today we're going to look at what is money. The vast majority of people fail to understand what money really is. Most people think the more money they earn, the richer they will be. However, often in truth, a higher income merely means a greater debt load. And being even more of a debt slave, you'll often find people who actually earn a lot more money often just simply carry bigger loans and bigger debts. So what's the truth about money? First thing is you've got to understand money is merely a unit of exchange. It's only of worth if both parties agree it has value. If I was to take my Australian dollar to a foreign country where they didn't know where even Australia was, to them it would just be a piece of paper. And I very quickly learned this rule that money only has worth if both parties agree it has value. Most money today exists only in the databases of computers. It's digital and does not even exist in the physical realm. Technically, unlimited amounts of it can be created instantly at no production cost at all. So, the fundamental truth is money in and of itself is worthless. Something that doesn't even really exist in the real world cannot be intrinsically of worth. However, it gains worth as it's declared legal tender by the government. For example, you'll see on paper notes, it says this note is legal tender for all debts public and private. However, even with this government decree, it still only has value if we, the people, agree to accept it. Numerous times in history there's been cases where the people have lost faith in their currencies. For example, the hyperinflation in Weimar, Germany, or recently the hyperinflation in places such as Yugoslavia or Zimbabwe. Despite this government declaration, most money is in fact created by independent central banks. This money, currency or notes are actually instruments of debt or evidence of a debt. The real owners of these central banks and Federal Reserve is hidden under a web of deceit and lies. Because money creation is the creation of further debt, the original debt can never be paid off in full. Because not only do you have to pay back the original money, you also have to pay back the interest accrued. The only way to pay back that accrued interest is to issue more money that also has more interest tied with it, creating a never-ending cycle of increasing debt. Eventually this collapses on itself and you have periods of deflation where there's massive bankruptcies as people can't meet this ever-spiralling debt. Thus we have the creation of the boom and bust cycles that occur with inflation and deflation of the money supply, enabling those in control to follow the simple principle of buy low and sell high, or sell high and buy low. That way they get vast profits and increased control. Do we have to accept this money? This is what the Reserve Bank of Australia says. It is the Reserve Bank of Australia's understanding, although the Australian currency has legal tender status, it does not necessarily have to be used in transactions, and its refusal to accept payment in legal tender banknotes or coins is not unlawful. In other words, if you choose to do a barter trade or a similar thing, they're not going to throw you in jail because you chose not to use their paper currency. So, although we can blame the money masters, in truth we are at fault because we accept these notes as wealth and hence create the chains of our own bondage. I just want to look at what I call some universal laws of money. The first one is that money is never created or destroyed, it is merely transferred. When a stock market crashes, that money doesn't disappear. When you hear on the news they say $1 trillion was wiped off the stock market overnight, that money didn't cease to exist. It went in the hands of the insiders, those who knew to sell at the top or to short the stocks. Likewise, when money is printed, it doesn't create more wealth, it steals value from every note in circulation through inflation. Probably this is best illustrated by understanding that since the Federal Reserve was created in 1913, the US dollar has lost 97% of its purchasing power. So although they've printed more and more, the basic value of each individual note has decreased less to purchase less and less and less. Money is not wealth, it's an illusion. Health, resources, and quality of life and the environment. This is where real wealth lies. Take, for example, recently deceased Steve Jobs. Did he have wealth? By most standards, we'd say, oh, yeah, he had a lot of money. But I can assure you, he'd give away half his so-called fortune if he could have been offered an instant cure for pancreatic cancer. Because real wealth includes such things as health, resources, quality of life, even the number of friends and family that you may have. You may be in a hugely wealthy nation in terms of money, but if your land is all destroyed through oil being pumped all over it, do you really have wealth? Or are you left with a sad legacy of death? Take, for example, if you were shipwrecked on a desert island, what would be the first thing you'd want? Would you say, I want $100 million? Or would you prefer to say, I want fresh water, I want a fishing line to fish, I want fruit and vegetables and a shelter? When you're placed in a more realistic scenario of what human existence is about, suddenly money ceases to have much value at all. That's what I call my second law of money, that money is not wealth. Understand it's an illusion. We only believe it's wealth because of what it can get us. And here's my third law of money. So applying money to social problems seldom solves them. Take, for example, if I was to give $300,000 to a heroin junkie, is it going to solve his problems? He may now not need to commit crime to support his habit, but it's not going to solve his habit. In fact, it'll probably make it worse, and he'll be even more quickly, dead from an overdose. It's like giving money to an alcoholic. It's not going to solve their problem. Often government programs where they simply apply money to a social problem, in fact, makes the problem worse. And that's why we must be very careful whenever anyone says, oh, we'll fix this problem by giving them more money. Too often government departments believe a greater budget will solve their problems. Take, for example, the education system. Too often we're told, if they have a bigger school, a nicer school, and pay the teachers more, that suddenly the standard of education will improve. That's often not true. Often the standard of education will improve if the parents take more role in their children's education and read to them at home. Both my children can read because we've taught them at home first before they get to school. The school supplements what we do, but just to rely on the teacher to do it all is ridiculous. And saying I'll throw more money at them to solve the problem won't necessarily solve my problem. Jesus said in John 12:8, "For the poor you will always have with you." Even he recognised that simply taking money from one person and giving it to another doesn't solve the problem of poverty, nor some of the ills associated with it. This is where I bring in the final law, which I call the law of wealth. Extrinsic and intrinsic. external wealth, such as real wealth, is created by the application of labour or technological advances. That's if we want to increase the amount of wealth and quality of life amongst people, we don't print more money. We do it by producing more resources for people, or making advances in technology that make our quality of life better, or that improve the effect we have on our environment. Intrinsic or personal wealth is created by the increase of personal knowledge, relationship building, and wisdom. Our own personal wealth may increase if we take on a fitness program and we choose to be the healthiest person that we can be. Our own personal wealth may increase as we meet people and build relationships with them within our own family. What is real wealth? Wealth is not merely some digital thing in a computer. Real wealth has much more applications than simply stocks in a portfolio. That's my summary of money versus wealth. Put your comments below and tell me what you think. I'm thinking of doing a video on the notion of Freeman. A lot of people are talking about this concept. I have a few problems with it. I'm not against the concept of liberty. I'm a huge supporter of liberty, and I'm not opposed to democracy either. But I like this quote here from Ratzak from Starship Troopers, and he says, "You're using force, and force, my friends, is violence, the supreme authority from which all other authority derives." My thing with the Freeman is they talk about common law and concepts like that as if they really exist. They say you can sue someone if they breach your common law rights, yet the courts they don't recognise, because they claim they're Admiralty courts, these are the same courts they're expecting to pay out their $1 billion lawsuit. And if they don't recognise the government authority, then what's to say the pieces of paper are worth anything anyhow? These are some issues I'd like to discuss. If you'd like me to discuss them and talk through some of the problems I see with the free man movement, put it in the comments below. If I get enough people interested, I'll do a video. If not, I'll just leave it alone. I'll try to take a bit of a devil's advocate on it and see where at this time I believe their concepts have failings. It's not that I'm against them completely. It's just that when I look at history, unfortunately this comment, "and force, my friends, is violence and the supreme authority from which all other authority derives," this seems to be a more true thing in our world. For example, the current English system, which overtook the Anglo-Saxon system that went before it, how did that get established? Did it get established on some lawful authority? I think you'll find it got established because William the Conqueror, one of my ancestors, grabbed some troops and conquered it and used violence to conquer the throne of England, and then went on a conquest throughout the land to subjugate it all under his control. Therefore, to try and say that the English monarchy is based on lawful authority or anything like that, perhaps is on very shaky ground, because what I see it was established on was violence. And throughout history, violence has solved a lot of things. I'm not necessarily advocating violence in the sense of the medieval violence where you kill someone and take their land or things like that, or a Mongol invasion sort of violence, because violence can be even more subtle than that. Gandhi, in his so-called passive resistance, was hugely successful in what he did. And in one way, you could say it was violent because it attacked the British Raj at its very fundamental places of control by attacking the production of salt. He was removing a major revenue stream from the British government, making it far too costly for them to keep their administration there. And he effectively destroyed the system of control using this passive resistance, which, when you look at its consequences, you could say it was a form of violence in that it destroyed its opposition. Often passive resistance can be the strongest form of violence. What do you think? Put something in the comments below, and see if you want me to discuss this notion of free man, and which also brings in concepts of the judicial system, common law, all these sort of things. That's Silver Bull Channel. I'll try to get some silver before Christmas. I know you're hanging out for the silver, because the silver always gets me the best views, but I will get some silver before Christmas, I promise. Silver Bull Channel signing off. Keep stacking.